This is Chris Rogers. He's a local artist known for his colorful and creative murals. You may have seen some of his work around Austin. In fact, I'm sure you have. With over 15 murals throughout the city, Rogers says they each tell a story.
One of the first murals that I did was the one on East 12th and Chacon, We Rise. And the first rendition I did in 2013, there was still a lot of people that were originally from that neighborhood still living there. And so I wanted to paint faces that looked familiar, you know, so I did like Michael Jackson and James Brown and had a bunch of color and, you know, just wanted to amplify the culture there. And it wasn't even a paid gig. It was just an opportunity to paint a wall. And one of the things that really struck me in that experience was as I was painting on it, people would come up to me from that neighborhood and literally thank me for bringing color to that area. And some people even had tears in their eyes. And that struck me. And that was the first time somebody thanked me for painting faces that looked like theirs.
Rogers originally grew up on Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, where he mentions that the lack of diversity drew him to Austin, Texas. A
lot of the work that I do encompasses, you know, Black and brown people, marginalized cultures, and there wasn't much of a scene there. There really wasn't. I mean, Hilton Head is a resort. People go there to vacation, to party, to retire. But as far as like a scene of creative people that, not necessarily like professionals, but people that were, you know, super passionate about what they were doing, it wasn't there.
But he admits his success didn't come easy.
Another big inspiration for me is my recovery from alcohol and drugs. And, you know, one of the biggest things that I've learned and what I'm continuing to learning about that experience is that it's not a solo mission. Even if I wanted to do it, I couldn't do it alone. What I got back was myself and an ability to connect, an ability to be honest, an ability to see myself in other people. And that has really amplified my artwork to this day. I want to paint something that, you know, round kicks people in the chest, something they can identify with, something that makes them proud to be exactly who they are, something that inspires them to greater heights, you know, because I've always been an artist since the, you know, day I was born, but I wouldn't even have made it out of the gates with anything if I didn't have, number one, the mother that I had, you know, who inspired me, who nurtured me, who, you know, said, yeah, you can do that.
So how did Chris become so well known in Austin?
I knew one person from college, and that was it. I had no bearings whatsoever. So what I did is I would set up shop on South Congress, and I would just set up my paintings and my easel, and I would paint. And sometimes I'd sell stuff, but most of the time I didn't. But every time I would set up, I'd meet people. That opportunity at 12th and Chacon, met somebody, met the owners.
Just from being on the corner of Congress.
Yeah, and to this day, 90% of the business side crew comes from people seeing me paint live.
Chris says after struggling with his addiction to drugs and alcohol, he's found his purpose.
I just want to continue to create art and to be the best artist I can and touch as many people as possible. And, you know, when it's all said and done, hopefully it's a long time from now, but when it's all said and done, I want to be empty. Like I want to leave it all out there.
He also wants others to know they aren't alone.
It's never too late. It's never too late, and there's all the hope in the world, and all you have to do is ask for help. You don't have to understand it, you don't have to like it, you don't have to believe in anything, you just have to be willing to take some help and to take some action, and everything changes. Literally everything changes.
If you are interested in checking out some of Chris's work, head on over to his website, chrisrogersartist.com, or even just take a stroll throughout downtown Austin.